So the reason you can't stick to your diet, it doesn't come down to willpower. It's because you're setting your diet up to fail before you even start. And all you need to do is...
More information, the better. So I'm not saying too much information is the problem. I think too much information in conjunction with like Amazon Prime mindset, like a lack of patience and a lack of just like compliance, right?
If you think structure is restrictive, try being a prisoner to your bad habits for the next 10 years.
So the last like 2 nights I've been watching like weightlifting again.
Okay.
And there's 2 weightlifters I've watched. Carlos Nazar, who's a Bulgarian weightlifter, and Tian Tao. And he's a Chinese weightlifter, like a Chinese world champion, right?
Yeah.
And the videos were like a week in the life of Tian Tao and then a day in the life of Carlos Nazar, like what they get up to like in the day, which I love those things, especially professional athletes. And I couldn't believe, you can believe like the routine that they go through because they're professional athletes endorsed by their company to become Olympians and to bring home, gold medals. And I think they're both gold medalists. But like both of them take themselves extremely seriously. Like we spoke about before about like, elite athletes got this tunnel vision and they're very much set on breaking world records, becoming world champions and the best ever, right? That's like their goals. But like both of them, when they were saying these things, it was so light, like the mood was so light. Tian Tao literally just like laughs after his sets. So he would do like a couple of front squats and then like look over to his like training partner who was doing like the same weight and he'd make it look easier. And then he'd have like a little bit of banter back and forth. And then the other guy failed and then he just burst out laughing. And then Tian Tao was like on his back, like taking the piss out of him. And then he's like, oh, wait, I'm going to come over and I'm going to do it on your bar. And then he comes over there and does it on his bar and then gets it, but it's like really fucking hard. And they're just like having a laugh. And then he hurts his back. And he's like, oh, I can't do this at the minute. He's like, I've got a bit of a back injury, so I'll just work around it. And then the next day, he was like, oh, my back still feels a bit like shit. He was just like, but we'll just see what we can do, and I'll just make some stuff work, And he was so lighthearted, right? And then I come into work, and then I'm watching like my members train, who are very entry-level lifters, and the world is ending if they miss one rep. And they're absolutely fine. They miss one rep, their world is ending. Their whole identity is being insulted because they did 70 for 4 and not 5. And they were like, I was meant to do 5, therefore I'm shit. And it's like this whole they just sort of like attack themselves by like this just by missing a little rep here and there. And I was like, how funny is that? I'd love to see like the Dunning-Kruger effect curve. Of like, that's all Dunning-Kruger effect with like the confidence thing and like knowledge thing.
What is that for the view? I love the Dunning-Kruger effect, but I'm sure a lot of people listen to this will be like, what the fuck's Dunning-Kruger effect?
So it's basically so the best way to like illustrate it is like when someone does like a PT course and they finish their PT level 1 and they have this like minimal knowledge, but they think they know absolutely everything because they've just done this
good analogy,
qualification. So they finish this course, they're like, right, I know absolutely everything. And then they go around trying to help everyone, correct everyone, throw in other coaches under the bus because they've got this like newfound knowledge. And then once they've sort of worked for a couple of X amount of time, they come to realize that they know absolutely nothing. So they go from like super high confidence and very low competence to like low confidence and like moderate confidence. So then there's those sort of two sort of work over time until someone that's sort of like mastered their field would just sort of sit in the middle. They have like high confidence, but not arrogantly high confidence. And their competence is very, very high, but they know there's still so much more to learn. And that extrapolated into like actual training is like really, really funny. So you watch like the more experienced guys lift and it's like not the end of the world if they miss something. They're like, oh, it just wasn't my day or whatever. And then less experienced people then are a bit more like, oh my God, this is horrendous. Like just life over. But how interested is it like to watch the 2 sort of like mini documentaries now on 2 weightlifters and both of them the top of the game and both of them don't really take themselves like too seriously when they're training. And I guess that's what comes down to like longevity in their sport. Like they do this day in, day out all the time. If they got hyper emotional, probably wouldn't either get the training quality or they probably wouldn't be in it as much.
And I love what you said there about the competency thing. And it's I saw a quote yesterday on Thomas More. We both follow Thomas More, don't we? And he said something along the lines of always the student, never the master. And I think people who strives to that will always understand that there's always more to learn, and the more that you do learn, the less that you actually know the less that you know. Because like there's so much more to unpack about all this stuff. Like I'm always learning stuff. Like I think I said it in the last podcast, coming down here, never been able to squat 200k. You were like, you're losing control in your hips. I was like, I've never even been able to see my hips are flaring out. And then you give me drills, and then I'm like, I've just squatted 207.5 kg. Little tweaks, you know. And I think that's a skill in itself to have. I think you call it like a coach's eye, where you're able to pick up on these things, and it is a skill. I think it's an art, and it's nice to hear that. And I think it's a really good segue into the question that I asked in the last podcast, but we didn't quite have enough time to answer, and we said that we'd answer it today. I think that's such a good segue, and that is, why do you think some people then do stick to things while other people can't? And we said that you were going to answer the training part of this.
Yeah, and you do the diet.
And I'll do the diet.
Go on, you do the diet first. I feel like I've spoken for two.
No. You start with the diet, the training if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think two of the main things that make up like lack of adherence in the gym are, one, access to information, like via social media, and just it's everywhere now. You
too much information.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say too much. This like because the more information, the better. So I'm not saying too much information is the problem. I think too much information in conjunction with like Amazon Prime mindset, like a lack of patience and a lack of just like compliance, right? So I know I love the Amazon Prime
class.
lines. I know
It's class.
So I think what happens is like people will start something. So we heard of like program hoppers, right?
Oh yeah.
So and I think that's where like the information overload thing comes from, right? Is that people start something and they're like, this person's done this person, all the information's out there to suggest that these people have had great results running this program, right? So then they jump on it and they do it. So they're just running one sort of snippet of what the other people are doing that they're comparing themselves to, right? And then they're like, I should be doing what they're doing, right? So I'm benching 100 kilos, I run this, small off program, and then I'm going to be benching 130 kilos in 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, right? And then they start, and then they have this like great intention, and then all of a sudden it just feels hard, it hurts, and it's not worth the gain that they get in. So they're like, I'm always in pain, my food bill's gone up, I'm in the gym all the time, and I've only put 2.5 kilos on my bench press in 4 weeks. Fuck, I wish I could do that, right? And they're like, it's just not worth it. It's not as an effective program for me. They play the special snowflake card, and then they're like, I'm going to go on to another program, back on the internet. Oh, from Smolov to bloody Shaco. Now I'm going to try Shaco. It's got a bit more benching and I get to it. Again, another 4 to 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. Push harder, like, oh, I'm even more sore. This program is just like, not really doing it for me. I'm a little bit bored because I'm benching all the time. I'm going to do like a lower frequency bench press program, and then they move on to that one. So I feel like people will search for information, find all these different types of like programs that do work, but they work when you stick to them over time. And then they just got this huge lack of impatience. They got a huge lack of patience in the game as well. So then they just get bored, get stale, and then they're just like, oh, whatever. And I think that is like it in a nutshell. I think people are just sort of really impatient. I feel like they're searching for something that doesn't exist, and what actually exists is, I hate when people say consistency is key, but ultimately it is. Being consistent with like your habits when you're trying to get an outcome, it takes longer than what people think. So I think like information, consistency, like within that, and just basically just putting that work in day in, day out. And I feel like people are just getting so like so distracted by what they perceive as like a realistic expectation for an outcome.
I was just gonna say, their expectations are fucked.
Yeah, and then also just like a bit of social pressure as well. Like it's so easy to just come off the bandwagon. It's so easy to just be like, I'm a bit sore today, I'm not gonna bother. Or I'm a bit tired today, I'm not gonna bother. Or like, my cat's ill, so I'm just gonna stay home. And people blame that. They'll always look for an early, easier, more comfortable outcome, and that'll just not yield the results that they want.
Which is really weird, because I've been training since I was 16 years old, and I know you've been training for around the same time as well. And I think there's real wisdom in like in doing the hard thing. Like I think we as humans like get something out of doing something hard, because there's I don't think there's ever been anyone, again, if there's someone watching this who has thought this, who has gone to the gym and then walked out and gone, oh, I regret doing that. What does everyone say when they leave the gym? They say, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I feel so much better now for doing that.
Yeah.
And we are living in comfort city. It's everything is the Amazon Prime mindset. It's how can we make this easier? How can we make this more convenient? But I think there's something in our DNA that we thrive off from doing hard things.
Yeah.
It's the struggle.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think that's reserved for a certain type of person. So like we have it, and because like you're not gonna not brush your teeth, and I'm not gonna squat. You know, like if it's programmed, I'm going to do it. If I go on holiday, I find a gym and I do it. Like it's just built in to like our routines. You know, like the world could be fucking ending, but if I've got like squats to do, then sorry world, I got to squat. You know, like it's just built in with us. And I think some people genuinely would be like, nah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather not. I'd rather just be comfortable. And it could be just, you know, like there's just loads of masking stuff now, isn't it? You know, there's loads of things like stuff that you can wear to cover flaws. Medicine is really, really, you know, really good, where you can take blood pressure medication and sort of keep that under control. People just sort of like lean harder onto it. I don't necessarily think people really want to do that, but I think the choice is like, oh yeah, I want to do that, but, and then they create like a million and one excuses, and they just much rather not do it and then use other things to keep them ticking over. You know?
Yeah, so you've got all these things. I think back in the day, if someone couldn't stick to something, I'd be like, oh, they're just fucking mentally weak. And I think there is some element of that. I think some people are just generally more mentally strong than other people. But I think there's a lot, like you said, the societal things, like the medication, the easy route, basically. But I think that is harming people in the long term.
Yeah.
Because going back to that thing, I think humans do get something from doing hard things. And if they're opting for the easy stuff, I think it makes them it makes them not be able to get the hormones that your body releases naturally from doing hard things. And they miss out on that stuff. Yeah. You were telling me a few days ago, there's medication now that you can literally take that increases your serotonin in your brain, you know, and I think it was dopamine that you said as well.
Yeah,
you know,
injectable oxytocin.
That's mental. Like that is the feel good. So the oxytocin is the feel good hormone that our body releases, right? And the fact that you can now inject that is like, what's like, you can just be sitting on a couch feeling a bit down and go, and you go, oh, I feel better now. That's war. I would
mental. Love to know like the reason that exists. I wonder whether it's used as like an antidepressant or something like that. Just saw it as part of a shopping list.
Fucking berserk.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's berserk.
Like, I know.
They're saying that you can take MDMA and that increases your serotonin.
Yeah.
And it's like a party drug, and you feel you're in love with everyone.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think there's elements of that that's always been around, but to be able to just take it willy-nilly and not really get a come down, maybe you do get a come down if you inject on oxytocin, I don't know, but it's berserk.
What do you reckon with the diet side?
So I had a bit of time to think about this. So I've made notes. And I'm gonna just have a look at them because I wanted to answer this based on 10 years of experience, and I thought if I didn't write them down, then I'd just be waffling and not saying what I really wanted to say. So no, and I'll start with something that that kind of ties in with what you said. And I think just starting too extreme is something that a lot of people do. I've seen patterns before when you get someone, you get a man come to me and he's like, oh, I've been dieting now on 1,500 calories. He's like 100 kg man. I'm like, 1,500 calories. Your starting point is 1,500 calories. Back in the day, I used to train women. I never had a woman go under 1,500 calories.
Yeah.
You are a 100 kg bloke. You're undercutting yourself from the get-go. When your weight loss stalls and plateaus, where do you go from there? Do you go to 1,004, 1,003? Like you're setting yourself up to fail from the start. So I think just managing, what did I say it was? Sorry, what was that? Where's it going? Yeah, just going too extreme and going from 0 to 100 overnight. Like someone who's all right, you know what it's like. You have a bad weekend of eating. You have like an epiphany and you think, fuck, I'm 40 next month. I'm in the worst shape of my life. I should be in my prime. You compare yourself to other 40-year-olds who are playing five-a-side on a Tuesday and they're able to do that. And, you know, the last thing that you can think of is playing five-a-side because you'll probably fucking rupture your Achilles or whatever. And I think some men go through that kind of, not a midlife crisis, but a realization that they're not where they should be. And then it's like, right, Monday, I'm going to fucking go to the gym 5 times a week. I'm going to start meal prepping.
Yeah.
You've not done any of that for however many years.
Yeah.
Like, you are starting off in a really bad position because you're going to just be knackered by Thursday because you're adding in all of this new stuff to your routine.
Yeah.
You're going to burn out.
Yeah, and it gets literally digested as stress, doesn't it? They'll get stressed about the preparation.
Training
process.
is a stressor.
Yeah.
Diet, tracking calories, meal prepping, it's a stressor because it's stuff that you're adding into your lifestyle.
Exactly.
It is genuinely, it's hard. It's like, well, it's hard if you do too much too soon.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you do it as well. Is you just, you know, you do it with training volume with clients. You introduce stuff slowly. And that's how you then build tolerance over a long time, and then you're able to do more and more and more of it. So that's the biggest pattern that I've seen. People falling off the wagon because they start too extreme. The second one is something that really fucking pisses me off, and that is relying on motivation. Like when I tell them, I ban the word motivation with my clients. I say, you can't come to me and say you're not feeling motivated, because motivation is like this, what did I say? What did I call it as? It's like a made up thing. Like with happiness, you know what happiness is. Like someone will tell you a joke, you laugh, you're happy. What is motivation? Like what is the feeling of motivation? It's being too tired, so you don't want to train. It's having a stressful day at work, so you've got other priorities, so you don't want to train. Like those are the real reasons behind not being motivated. So lean into them. If you're tired, fine. It's okay to be tired. Don't go to the gym on the day that you're meant to, but maybe sleep better the night before and then go to the gym. Then all of a sudden you fixed your low motivation because you're not tired. So I feel like people just throw out this, I'm not motivated. I'm not motivated card. It's like a get out card because I can say that and it's like the norm.
It's a buzzword, isn't it?
It's a buzzword. What does it mean? What does it actually mean? And something that I found as well is that people wait to be motivated to start, but that's not how it works. You start regardless of how you feel, and then you get motivated when you start seeing results. And that's what carries people through, is that feeling of, oh my God, my body's changing. They get excited, they can see the fucking bicep vein coming in, and then like, oh, I'm starting to get really buzzing now about this.
What do you do then when progress stalls?
In what?
Like, so say, like you said, like you start and then get motivated by results.
Yeah.
But then when progress stalls, what's your strategies then with clients?
Well, I think
it's inevitable, isn't it? Like you get to a point and then it's like, okay, I've stopped losing weight, I've achieved a better condition, but I want more, and now it's slower and harder. So how do you keep them motivated?
You see it as a lifestyle change. Like, you don't see it as an end product. Like, going back to what I said at the start, always the student, never the master. And it's a case of with fitness, I think it's a lifestyle. Like, you do a 12-week shred and you get into better condition. What? So then you're just going to stop?
Yeah.
Do you stop and then go back to your old life, the life that you weren't happy with before, and then just stop completely? And then 12 weeks down the line, you're in worse shape, and then you're not getting that dopamine from training. You're feeling worse because you've gone back to your old eating habits, and you're back to square one again. Like, don't see it as like a phase. See it as a lifestyle change, a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Because I do think that people who are generally look after themselves, who train, who have one eye on their diet and eat well, I think they are generally happier people. Would you agree with that?
I do. What about with people that don't have or require like an outcome goal? So there's certain people that I work with that always need something. So like COVID was a real big thing for those people because like training became chaotic. They couldn't do like their regular training routines, and obviously everything went upside down. But those are the people that like needed competitions. They needed something to be training like for. Otherwise, it's like nothing. And those people were really hard to stay compliant and just to keep training, to stay bought into like the lifestyle. So what you do with your nutrition clients that always require like an end goal, they always require something to work towards. If they've achieved like their one thing, how do you keep them motivated to the next thing?
Yeah, and I think that ties into my other point that I've got down here, which is it's like, I feel like I'll answer this part in two parts actually. So there's always something else to strive for when it comes to your physique. I think it's quite addictive when you say, do your first ever cut. I think the first ever cut that anyone does, so relating this to fat loss, is the hardest cut that you will ever do. I think it's like one of the hardest things. I had this chat with a friend the other day, and I think it could be harder than doing an Ironman, like losing fat first, just because it's a 24-hour thing. Whereas with an Ironman, you can eat. Your diet doesn't have to be that great because you're burning so many calories with your training. You're training 4 or 5 times a week, possibly 6. I don't really know much about the training nuances. But after that training, it's kind of done. And then you've got your food, that's it. Whereas with fat loss, it's a 24-hour thing. If you have shit sleep, you're going to be hungrier the next day, which means that at the end you're battling cravings. If you're stressed, most people generally, when they're stressed, turn to alcohol, wine, food. So you've got those things to contend with as well. And then you've got the social pressures of friends inviting you over for dinner. If they're having like a big Chinese and you're like on, in week 16 where calories are a little bit low, you have to go like, oh, I don't really have this. If I want to get leaner, I can have it, but if I want to get leaner and complete this goal that I've set out for myself, and we're obviously talking here about getting quite lean, not just losing a few pounds. Then that you've got that. I just feel like there's so many more barriers and obstacles to contend with. That's why I said that I think losing fat initially first, getting quite lean, I should have said, is a lot harder than a triathlon, just because of all these things.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Honestly, no.
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 Fair enough.
I don't think I would, because I feel like those things. I think I can understand the point you're making, especially in terms of like planning, and if someone's trying to get like particularly lean, they're constantly living in a state that is like always a bit like aggy, Whereas like if someone's training for an Ironman, you can generally like get like huge like dopamine hits. Everything is a little bit easier to control outside of like the training themselves. But fucking Ironman is like. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, and I think that. So I'm still sticking with my guns. I still think it's harder to lose fat because if you look at, so here's a good way to look at it, and how I've looked at it in the past is if you look at people, the percentage of people in the UK who are overweight or obese, 52%.
Yeah,
it's a big number. It's almost half the population, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at people who do Ironmans and triathlons, a lot of those people aren't in great shape. There's some who are, but there's a lot of people who would be classed as overweight. And that's why I think sometimes that's what I sometimes look at as well. I'm like getting and again I'm saying getting really lean here. I'm not saying just losing a few pounds. So that's why I use that. I say that. And again, going back to what you said, like when you're losing fat, you're in a state where your hormones are dropping, you're just always tired, fatigued, snappy. Smell of foods can just set you off and make you pissed off if someone's having it. Again, this is going to that extreme of getting really photo shoot lean kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I said that. But again, then point number 2, I think sometimes when people, let's say they're working and they're losing fat or whatever, I think and then they say they just want to give up and stop completely and go back to their old life. I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that there's no consequence of them quitting.
Yeah.
Like when they feel like nothing happens, it's like, okay, I've quit so many times before. What's the consequences of this quitting? Well, we know the consequences of carrying too much body fat. It can you're more prone to heart attacks and strokes and just lugging a lot of weight around with you and whatnot. And I think there has to be some element of, if I quit, there's going to be a consequence. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes comes in when people keep hitting their goals, or they've hit their goal, their fat loss goal, or their muscle building goal. I think there's always something else to then aim for instead of just quitting.
Yeah.
And being like, cool, done that, I'm stopping altogether. And that's why I'm not like a huge fan of like these, I say extreme 12-week plans, which just gets people into like a holiday condition, because it's not building a lifestyle. You can still do 12-week plans, but always think long term. It's like, well, this is part of my lifestyle. There's some men who play 5-a-side on a Wednesday. That's their lifestyle. That they enjoy playing that. It's like, if you don't like the gym, then that's fine. You don't have to go to the gym, but have some kind of have something in your life that anchors you to your health, to like your body, to like looking after you as a person. It doesn't have to be the gym. It can be walking. You can join a walking group, but look after your health. And the consequences of not looking after your health is long-term effects.
Yeah, no, for
like
sure. It's like
the bad stuff.
Yeah, it's like the like when you get into like training, you said like you don't have to like get yourself into a condition, and it's like you don't have to do like a 12-week transformation and be like Dyson and that's it, that's the end, and then you just revert. It's like micro goals like within that. So like for me, I'm obviously a powerlifter. My outcome goal is like the forever pursuit of strength.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what I want to try and do, is get my squat, bench press, and deadlift 1 RMs up over time. And it's so funny, you set yourself these micro goals. I remember I was like, I really want to squat 300 kilos. And I was like, once I've done 300 kilos, like I'll be sweet. It's like a big milestone. And then you squat 300 kilos and you're like, oh, what's cooler than 300? 310.
Yeah.
And then 320, you know? And it's like, I want to do 700 pounds. And then it's like, oh, now I want to squat 800 pounds. It's like that never ending pursuit, you know, to always better yourself. And I feel like maybe it's just reserved for certain types of people, but you're literally never satisfied. Like as soon as you've done something, you're always like, okay, the next thing now, and the next thing. And bless my sister. My sister's on a weight loss journey now, and she's like almost unrecognizable. She's lost her absolute like shit ton of weight. Super proud of her.
Fair play.
Yeah, I wrote her a diet plan just before in November time, and I wrote it, and there were some foods in there that were like not really in her diet, but she ate a lot of processed food, and I was like, I'm not just going to choose. So we generally like use people's normal eating habits and then make little adjustments based off that, so we can get the compliance, adherence, and then work towards their goals. And Laura's food choices were just not that great, and I was just like, these are the food choices that you need to include some more whole foods and micronutrients, and just have a little more variety and balance like within your diet. And she was like, well, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like this, and I don't like that. And I was like, okay, cool, let's just like compromise, and you have to do like this, this, and this, and then you can have this, this, and this. And she just like, weight was just dropping off her. And then that was it then. I wrote one diet, and I was just like, do that. And I was like, you can check in with me and we'll make little adjustments. And she just literally took the lead, which is like the best thing ever. Took complete ownership, hasn't really bothered me since, and just gives me messages now and then and just says how's it going. She's like 4 or 5 stone down now.
Wow, that's incredible.
Unbelievable. And now same with her. She was just like, I want to reach like this. And if she's reached that number, and she's addicted now to the feeling that she has of like more energy, sleeping better, more mobile, feels fitter when she's walking the dogs, hit this arbitrary number that she created. And she's just like, no, I want more of this now. And it's nice now because she's hit this like weight loss number that she's got in her head, but the process of it all and the other feelings she's getting from just being healthier essentially is what's like keeping her motivated now and keeping her ticking. And it's class because then there's like opens a door, like you said, you don't have to be married to the gym, you don't have to like find your thing in here. But now she's like, the first time ever, she's like exploring like what is her thing, so now she's like, oh, where can I go from this now? So it's really cool, and I'm curious now to see where she sort of takes it to.
Fuck, that's amazing.
Yeah, class.
And I ask her, I'm always intrigued. I always ask people like, what was that catalyst to change?
Yeah.
Because you see it so often, people just, it's almost like they're on autopilot, going day to day, just not really, like obviously do think they whether they, put on a t-shirt and it's like, oh, this feels tighter than what, tight in the wrong areas, it's getting tighter on me. They put a pair of jeans on and like, oh, I can't get the button on now. Yeah. So those things, you're obviously seeing and experiencing these things. And then some people will just buy a bigger pair of trousers then, or they'll buy a bigger t-shirt. So like that thing that makes you go, no, this is wrong, this isn't right. I'm always so intrigued to understand what people is like, what that point that just things change.
What was it for you?
For me, it was shame and embarrassment. So when I put on a lot of weight in uni, went to watch my brother play rugby, and we were in a stand, and my dad's friend literally called me out in front of everyone. Because before I go into uni, I was known as the fitness guy. Like I would go and cut my hair. Bear in mind, I was 18 at the time. I'd go and cut my hair, and like my barber would be like, "Oh, Dan, can you write me up a diet plan?" Like I had friends and family asking me if I could help them with their fitness and stuff. So known as the fitness guy, go to uni, come back, and like my dad's friend says, "Fucking hell, stop training, have you, Arnie?" Like in front of everyone, he's like, "You've let yourself go." And I remember just looking at my dad's face, and my dad, I think if I killed someone, my dad would back me up. He'd be like, "No, he's innocent." But looked at him, and he was like, "I can't say anything because it's true." And then I was like, "Oh shit! Like this is real." Because I've been feeling it.
Yeah.
Like I knew I'd put weight on, and I remember before going to uni, there was this guy from my hometown. And everyone was saying, "Oh God, have you seen him? He's put on so much weight since he's been away in uni." And I remember telling myself, I was like, "I'll never be like that when I go to uni." And then coming back from uni, I was that guy. And that was the change for me. It was almost like shame, embarrassment, going back on my word. Like I'm very much like, if I say something, like I get so many ideas in my head and I keep a lot of them to myself. But if I say that I'm going to do something, like I almost feel like I've got a sense of shame and embarrassment if I don't go through with it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've told this person or these people that I'm doing this, follow through with it.
Yeah.
Like, and even if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, at least I've given it my all.
Yeah.
So people aren't looking at me going, "Oh, fair play. If Dan says he's going to do something, he's going to do it."
Yeah,
It's not a bottler.
Yeah.
And I've got that. I hate that about myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm like doing stuff and I'm like, I did my marathon. And I remember I was halfway through in the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Groins cramping up, calves cramping up. And I remember I remember talking to myself. I was like, "Why the fuck are you doing this? Who are you trying to prove this to?" But at the end of it, I felt amazing.
Yeah,
I was
yourself.
like,
That's
yeah,
what it was,
yeah.
wasn't
It's
it?
always, you think that you're doing it for, I think there's always external validation that you're looking for.
100%. Yeah.
Always
That's human nature.
Always. And people who say that they don't do things
Yeah,
are liars.
Yeah.
They're full of fucking shit. Josh is looking at us like, "Oh." But yeah, I think it always comes back to that sense of like feeling of, why am I actually doing it? And there's always that element of, I'm genuinely doing this for myself.
Yeah.
There's always externals.
Yeah.
What did you ask me? You asked me a question then, and I was going to ask you the same question back. How did we get onto that?
The catalyst.
Yeah, the catalyst to change. That's it. Yeah. What was yours?
So because I was playing tennis and then I basically couldn't compete anymore, I had to find something else to like sort of do to sort of like, I think for me back then, it was like part of my identity. I was like this good athlete, good tennis guy. Loads of people gave me validation to be like, "Oh, you're just a natural athlete. You could pick up anything and do it." And I used to like thrive off people saying stuff like that to me. And I'd always want to try like prove to everyone I could do it. I ran a 1:25 half marathon with like no training.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, "I'm going to run 1:30." It did, and I was like, "Oh, next year I'm going to run 1:25." And Di Griffin said, "You won't run 1:25 because you don't train enough running to do that." And I was just like, "I'm going to do exactly the same as I did. I'm going to run 1:25." And I did it, but then I went to hospital straight after for severe dehydration, and I was on a drip straight after.
Seriously?
I was conked out. Yeah, unbelievable.
What, did you not drink?
I drunk. I tell you what, I drank. This is my naivety. I went to Holland and Barrett, and I was like, "I am running a half marathon tomorrow, and I need something to really get me going." And he was just like, "Take this," and it was a test tube energy shot. And I had oats in the morning, and I had that, and then I was like, "I don't really want to piss on the way around, so I'm not going to drink anything else." So it was just like pure caffeine, and it just dehydrated me.
Oh,
and I just ran. I ran with the 1:30 guy for half of the way, and this was my tactic, right? Run with the 1:30 guy to halfway point, and then just leave him, and then find someone that's going to run 1:25 and stay with them. And I found this girl like 2 miles out. I was like, "What are you going to run?" And she's like, 1:25, and I just literally stayed on her hip.
Wow.
And we finished, and as I crossed the finish line, I looked up, couldn't see the time, and then I was like, "Oh my God." And then a steward guy got me, and I was like blanking out, and then my mum was right at the finish line. She's like, "That's my son." Passed me through. I didn't have my medal or anything. She took me, and then I just went home. I was just like conked out in the car. Went home, and I was fucking gone. Mum phoned 111, like some advice, and they were like, "Oh, bring me to the hospital." I went in there. I was like, fucking, my piss was all weird, and I was like gone. I was like all out of it, and they put me on a drip.
Oh my days! I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I had my time through. Then it was like 1:25:11 or something.
Class.
I was like, yeah, fucking take that.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah, so like, and I did that just through like circuit training and just like CrossFit workouts and stuff like that. I didn't really run. But anyway, back to the question. So I was always like trying to do these like crazy things and just show to myself that I was this amazing athlete, right? Definitely wasn't. And then I think a lot of like the strength stuff came when I stopped playing tennis and then just wanted to sort of like pursue something to make me a bit more, like a bit bigger for the same reasons. Just wanted to look a bit more muscular, to be like more of a man.
Get the chicks.
But honestly, in this the deepest sense, I didn't really want to say it on the podcast, but I think it's quite important to say is a lot of it is just through childhood trauma, in terms of like what like my dad was quite like handsy, and it was like a way of me to like prevent that. So me and my therapist have like sort of unpacked. And this like feeling of getting bigger and stronger, so like no one can ever like do these things to me, and that was like a sort of like a built-in mechanism for me to pursue it. And I think that's what like started to get me a bit more obsessed with like strength, size, being really strong, trying to be stronger than the average dude. I literally started lifting weights because I wanted to be stronger than just like every guy that was sort of around me. And as soon as I could lift more than them, I was like, how much stronger could I be than them? And then I was like, how strong could I actually make myself? Which is why the exploration for like PEDs and running like into powerlifting and doing like just a pure outright strength sport to test absolute strength. That's why like all the appeal came to me, you know? And I think now it's just like, I think I've sort of digested all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it really is my motivator or the reason why I do this anymore. Because obviously it's given me a career and it's given me, given me everything really. But I think now it's more of just like the buzz that I feel when all of my ducks are in a row. So when like I'm eating well, sleeping well, like consciously training hard, and I know that I'm training hard, like the feeling I get from that is just like unmatched, which is why it's like a part of my routine. I reckon I'm probably to a point now where it's definitely not like unhealthy, because I can take it or leave it. Like I had my boy, and then I stopped training for a while, really reduced it. I'm not married to the point where it's like a necessity, but it's just a part of me now that it'll never ever go away. And it just makes me, I think it makes me feel me, like makes me feel like me, and it makes me more productive in everything that I do as a father, business owner, as a coach, and whatever. I feel like I'm far more productive and efficient in my job when I'm training and doing well in all that sort of stuff. So it just sort of like completes the whole like sphere of my being, you know.
It's so interesting hearing your story, because I read a book recently called The Alchemist. Have you read it?
No.
It's basically about like life's journey and how everything kind of goes full circle.
Yeah.
And just hearing you say your story, then I was just reminded me of The Alchemist. It's a really good book. You should read it. It's really good. It's a little tiny bit religious in parts, which I know you're not a huge fan of, but it's worth reading for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's how are you doing for time?
10 minutes.
Yeah, perfect. So I've got a question for you, a question for both of us, I guess, and that is, where is it? Let me find it. What's been the most difficult thing to accept about yourself?
Go on, you go first.
So I think I've been really trying to think how to answer this, and I'm not going to do a very good job at articulating what I'm trying to say, but I'll try my best. But I think it's just that thing of like, again, I don't know if it's like hardwired in me, and I don't know if it's because I started training when I was younger, but it's just that thing of like always striving for more. And not being like, don't get me wrong, there used to be a time where I'd be having a conversation with someone and I would be thinking about what I needed to do next. Like I'd be talking to them and right, like I'd be having a conversation and they'd be like, right, I need to do that later. I need to do that. Yeah. I'm not actually taking in anything of what that other person is saying. Yeah. It's mental. And then I went to a psilocybin retreat and it's just changed me completely. Like now I can have a conversation with someone for hours and just be so engaged in the chat, listening to them. It's fucking weird. But I think it's that thing where like, even though I'm a lot more aware now of being present and of enjoying what I've got and trying my best to like be, I guess be in the moment and appreciate what my life is like now, but always going, but I still want to be able to do that. I want to strive for that. I want to have this. I want to get to this point. It's like always looking forward. And I think sometimes that it pisses me off. Yeah. Because I'm like, we've talked about before, being the postman. Just being a postman, having the job, doing your 6 a.m. till 12, leaving it there, going home, do whatever the fuck you want. But it's just that constant thing of like, how can I make my programs better? How can I make my client experiences better? Do I one day want to open up like a facility, you know? And it's just that thing of like always thinking, always like being like, and it's just, sometimes I'm like, why can't you just like, and then it goes back to that thing of like, who are you proving this to? Like why do you want to do these things? Like what is the core? It's weird.
It can be good and bad, that though, isn't it? Because that's essentially just ambition, isn't it?
And I think
that's just like.
Do you think everyone's got it?
I think so. I don't think everyone's got it, which is why certain jobs exist that don't require too much work. You know, because I think some people are genuinely just happy doing very simple tasks, having a very simple life, not really requiring materialism, and they just want to just do what they do and then clock off and then continue. Whereas some people just wouldn't satisfy me. I can look at it in envy when I'm up to my eyeballs in work and it's like stressful, and you'd be like, oh, I wish I could just like get rid of all this stress and just deliver some parcels or post some letters and stuff. But I think ultimately that would get stale quick. And then you would just be like, what is my life about?
Yeah.
There's no fulfillment. There's no sort of it's not gonna scratch the itch of like your ambition. So I feel like I don't think everyone has it, but there's gonna be certain people like us that are ambitious, that do want more, that do want to challenge, that do want to make a difference in the industry. And ultimately, like the things that's gonna make a difference is like having a really good product, which is why you always want to try and like, you know, refine what you're doing and make it better. And then it's like, okay, I want to access more people. That's why I opened up Zero. It's like, I want to help more people. So I have a facility that caters to more people. So my online mentorship program, so I can access more people, help more coaches, make more money to help more people grow the sport of powerlifting. You know, all of these things are just part of like what I do, because I want to try and do as much as I can to help many people as possible. And I think like not everyone like has the same sort of like ambitious reach as that. Some people will just be like, I want to earn X amount of money, or they'll be motivated by money, or they'll be motivated by just like time or something like that, and then they'll just work hard towards like that one motivator. But I'm in the same boat as you there, man. Like I was thinking of crafting like a very similar answer to what you said. Like sometimes it's really hard to stay present and also reflect on your own progress. I had a business mentoring call yesterday, and they pumped out some numbers based on some things that we're doing, and it was like actually a lot more pleasant to see than like what I perceive, because you're just constantly thinking, this could be better, I could do this better, I want to do this, and I could do this, and all these other things, instead of actually being like, okay, well, like what's happening right now, what have you done to get here? Don't be hard on yourself on the journey you've had so far, or just at least reflect on that journey and be like, I'm actually doing pretty good, and then you know move forward from there. I don't think you'll ever lose the sort of like your future self of what you're going to be aiming for. But I think it's really important not to sort of disregard everything that you've done to like get to your like present point. It's just a really hard balance to sort of have ambition for the future and understand what you've done to get to that point.
That's good. And I think something that's helped me a lot sometimes to kind of reflect and go back is go into where I used to live in Splot. So Splot's quite like a shit place, rough place in Cardiff. And I used to live there. It was a bit of a shithole. Like my friend came over before and he literally said, fucking hell, this is like a Call of Duty map. Because it literally looked like that. And sometimes I'll just go back there and I'll drive and I'll look up to my flat that I used to be in. And I'll be like, oh, I've got my own place now. Yeah. Like I'm doing okay. And I think that's a good reality check sometimes. But like you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Like everything is okay. Everything's the way it's meant to be. Yeah. Like stop being so fucking harsh on yourself and just keep plodding forward. Nice, good podcast. Enjoyed it. Nice. Very good. Thank you guys. I haven't got anything else to say. Well, we had our two first dislikes on a podcast a few days ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, on the surprise is when we talked about the squat, bench, and deadlift days being shit.
Oh, yeah.
Probably got some like 18-year-old power lifter there going, don't like this.
Yeah.
Funny though. But yeah, thanks so much.
Well, thanks for watching it and just like